Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our beautiful casino building, where I have the great privilege of delivering the City of Lake Worth's State of the City address. I'm Mayor Pam Triolo. Unfortunately, our very own Lake Worth High School ROTC was unable to make it here to present the colors, so if everyone would please stand. And I see a friendly face, our neighbor to just south of us, Mayor Dave Stewart from the City of Lantana. Would you please join us and lead the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Mayor. I want to start tonight by introducing some other members of our commission. Vice Mayor Scott Maxwell. Vice Mayor Pro Tem Andy Amoroso. And Commissioner Ryan Meyer. I'd also like to take a minute to introduce Captain Todd Bear from PBSO. His assistant sitting here at the table, Amanda White. Deputy Mike Mahoney. And Sergeant Hans. While we're talking about PBSO, did you know there were 89,315 calls for service last year alone? They are averaging 7,443 calls every month, which equals 1,942 calls per road patrol deputy every month. Now, crime is down considerably since PBSO took over in 2008, and they continue to keep us safe, but we're going to have a detailed crime report at an upcoming commission meeting when it's released at its usual time every year in the spring. Also with us tonight is Battalion Chief Matt Gaffney. We have community representative from the Professional Firefighters and Paramedics, Local 2928, Rick Christmas. Craig Spiegelhalter, and the crew. Hey guys. Speaking of Palm Beach County Fire Rescue, in our last fiscal year, Fire Rescue responded to 7,244 emergency calls in just our city. It's good to know that when an emergency happens, some of the best trained and dedicated firefighters and paramedics are just a phone call away. We're very, very grateful. I'd like to recognize some other dignitaries from West Palm Beach, Commissioner Shannon Materio. Also mentioned Lantana Mayor Stewart. And also from our community, Pastor Lidman. Pastor Eddie Louison. Pastor Ralph Pierre-Louis. Thanks so much for taking your time. There are also many dedicated city staff here tonight who are at the various displays that you'll see along the back side of the room. I hope you have a chance to talk to them and get to know them as I have. Our employees right here in the City of Lake are truly the lifeblood of our organization, and we're so thankful for all their hard work and effort. You guys rock. And leading our great staff, our great team, is our own Pirate City Manager, Michael Bornstein. Tonight, I want to share with you my excitement and enthusiasm for the year ahead. 2016 is going to be incredible in so many ways, and I am energized and ready for the extraordinary. The things I'm going to share tonight are only possible because we've been doing the hard work, putting in the long hours, and sometimes making the difficult decisions that were needed. All the things that are necessary to keep us moving forward. We are, as your city government, we're committed to fixing and improving things. So we've taken on a lot of the unglamorous and mundane tasks that don't always make headlines, but are extremely crucial. It's a lot like cooking a great meal for, say, a party of 100. As many of you know, I love to cook. So imagine you're making a meal for a party of 100 people, and you enjoy that wonderful plate of homemade food or that decadent dessert. You know it's only possible, though, because the cook, which is usually me, started hours and sometimes days beforehand, shopping for just the right ingredients, slicing and dicing, prepping, simmering, warming the oven, chilling things in the fridge, and timing every course just right so that it all comes out at the same time and it works together, right? All the time and effort that goes into preparing a meal for 100 people is part of the process, and it's similar to what I, the commission, and staff have been doing to get us to 2016 on a much lighter scale. The same thing has been happening with your city. We've been in the kitchen doing all the prep work for a long time, 4 years to be exact, and now we're at the point where some really wonderful things are ready to be served up. I believe in Lake Worth, and I believe in my fellow citizens. That same level of faith and trust is now something we're seeing demonstrated at the various projects throughout our city. After years of nothing, literally $0, and then a few teeny tiny investments, something's changed, and the refilling of our city with new residents and businesses is finally occurring. This is significant because it's creating safer and improved housing opportunities while still being within our market range. It's resulting in businesses opening, which is reversing the trend started back in the 80s when businesses began leaving the city never to return. It's also creating much needed taxable valuation so we can become financially sustainable for the first time in many, many years. The projects I'm referring to include the Lucenti townhomes behind the post office, Hammond Park, now called Bellaterra beside Publix, the Villages of Lake Worth and its sister project, the Villages of Lake Osborne, which are market rate rental units on Lake Worth Road, and the Affordable Housing La Jolla project that just broke ground. We did a ribbon cutting yesterday as part of a major CRA effort. Waterville is a new townhouse project north of 10th Avenue that's under construction, as well as other residential and mixed-use projects that are currently in the review and approval pipeline. And let's not forget about the new tourism opportunities. Did you know that Palm Beach County brings in an economic impact of over $7 billion a year and creates approximately 66,000 jobs countywide each year? Over the last decade, Lake Worth has seen little to none of that money or benefit, as there were no hotels to stay in or to promote with those dollars. I'm honored to have attended the grand opening also last week of Wood Spring Suites on 10th Avenue west of 95. Hopefully soon they'll be host to many families and their future baseball star children visiting here to compete in tournaments. Or maybe they'll provide longer stays for new couples waiting to close on their new Lake Worth homes. In the very near future, we'll welcome a new hotel, possibly a Holiday Inn Express, that's going to be located at the corner of Boutwell Road and 10th Avenue North. And let's certainly not forget our iconic Gulfstream Hotel is now going through the approval process and is currently in site plan review. Everyone has hoped and wished it would reopen and be restored for more than 10 years. It's taking shape and becoming a reality, and it'll be a source of pride for our community. We've also had an unprecedented voluntary annexations. Yeah, people actually want us to be a part of our city. Can you imagine? Yeah. They want to be right here. They want to be part of our franchise. We welcome them, and there have been nearly 10 acres annexed in the last couple of years, after years of nothing, and there are also plans for another 5 acres in the very near future. And I can't talk about new projects and investment in Lake Worth without touching on what's happening in the Park of Commerce. The almost 400 acres of privately owned land west of 95 between 10th Avenue North and 2nd Avenue North includes the new Melrose Sprinkler. They just recently built and opened a nearly 5,000 square foot warehouse. The Hard Drive Paving Company, a longtime Palm Beach County business, they're building 23,000 square feet of facilities in the Park of Commerce. GSG Investment Warehouse, they're opening a 37,783 square foot distribution center with an additional 2,125 square feet of office space. And the Boutwell Business Center is an enormous 250,000 square foot complex that will supply industrial flex space and will include an expansion of a large regional employer. Yes, you heard me right on that last one. 250,000 square feet of space that will bring in over hundreds of jobs alone. Along the Dixie Corridor, you're starting to see some investment, and I've got a lot of interesting things to talk about there later, but the one solid investment that we've seen so far, at least within the last year, includes the old Chuck's Appliance building. So we're going to see some activity there as well. And all these projects demonstrate something significant, and this is it. Investors and property owners who once shunned Lake Worth are now confident enough to come here, follow our development rules, our guidelines, our process, and add life and opportunity to our city. This is the process of getting Lake Worth back to the time when we were a fully functioning city. The version of Lake Worth where residents could buy all the goods and services they needed from local businesses, as well as a range of decent housing opportunities. That hasn't existed here for many, many years, but we're finally on our way. So why are we seeing this activity? Why are we seeing this show of confidence? Like my cooking analogy about a great meal, when I first became mayor 4 years ago, actually over 4 years ago, it was like walking into the city's kitchen and turning on the lights and then having to plug in all the appliances for the first time in years. You had to call a plumber, you had to call an electrician, you had to call someone. It was obvious we suffered from years of benign neglect and inability to focus on serious problems due to our organization being hampered by instability and high turnover in both the staff and the elected officials. And the result, we had developed a deserved reputation of driving off investment of any kind. And for several years, nothing happened. Very few permits, no increase in tax base, and no new jobs. Instead, we were plagued by blight, squalor, and dysfunction. Back in 2011, I was determined to find a solution, so I asked a simple question. What are the reasons for our bad reputation, and how are we going to fix it? Basically, it became evident that there were several key disincentives we needed to address to turn things around. The first disincentive was the electric service. Our rates were too high, and we had a history of being a little unreliable. I'm proud to say, through hard work and making tough decisions, our reliability has improved dramatically and is now ranked 4th overall utilities in the state of Florida. I'm also proud to say that because we passed an ordinance that requires our rates to reach rate parity with FP&L, Lake Worth's electric rates are now within 4.79% of FP&L's present rate for a 1,000 kilowatt user. And over the past 4 years, the rates have been lowered 11.5% for residential users, 12.2% for small commercial use, and 17% for large commercial use. And did anyone happen to read or hear that FP&L is considering having major increases in their rates in the next couple of years? That could actually make our electric rates less expensive than FP&L in 2016-17. How ironic is that? Imagine the former disincentive, one of the largest, could become a great opportunity for Lake Worth and for all its customers, and one of a great reason that people will come and relocate to our city. Now, none of this would have been possible if we had become embroiled in a failed attempt to sell our utility like Triolo, or if we continued business as usual and not made significant improvements to how we operate our electric utility as a business. The fact is, informed families, businesses, and investors no longer hesitate about moving into Lake Worth based on concerns about our electric utility. It's changing for the better each and every day. The second major disincentive we identified was the outdated and inconsistent set of land development regulations, or LDRs. We work hard to develop and implement new LDRs as well as a comprehensive plan, or comp plan. This new set of rules provide consistency and predictability, and in turn removes the volatility that used to exist in our processes. The city subjected landowners to arbitrary and sometimes capricious actions while opening up tremendous legal liability. Instead, we adopted a stance that in Florida, property owners have tremendous property rights protected by law. Therefore, we must be clear, consistent, and predictable so we can define our small town character and keep it intact. For example, under the LDRs we put in place, the Lucerne condominiums in the center of downtown, often a controversial project because of its height, could not be built as it is right now. Whatever you think of that building, it is the result of a lack of good rules that take into account the compatibility of a building next to its surroundings. Also, most of the tall buildings that were built years earlier east of Federal Highway couldn't be built under our new rules today. The height restrictions we placed in the comp plan actually reduced the allowed heights that were in the previous code the city was functioning when I first arrived. Within the 12-block hotel district east of Federal, the limit is 45 feet, with only one exception. Only a hotel of 50 rooms or more can get to the 65-foot height allowed in the charter. Contrary to false statements put out there for political purposes, the commission lowered heights across the city's neighborhoods to 35 feet or less for single-family residential and single-family, and 30 feet for single-family 2 is the classification. And we did that to protect our neighborhoods and again, preserve our small-town character. The bottom line is that a consistent, well-thought-out plan and legally correct rules enforced by professional staff has removed a significant disincentive and is working to protect our city while encouraging smart infill development. Now, the last disincentive is related to our reputation as having poor customer service. When I first arrived, I personally dealt with problems pulling permits, dealing with billings, or getting a trash issue resolved. It was evident to me that each department was basically a shambles due to serious budget cuts, lack of staffing, no training, high turnover, and in some cases, improper equipment. Each department's fundamental operation was much like a house with no foundation. We've spent a lot of effort over the past 4 years putting the departments on solid, good foundations and fixing things from the ground up. It's an arduous task that has shown results, but we know it's still a work in progress. I have noticed a big drop-off in complaints across the board, though, but one of the biggest indicators that we're doing better is in the confidence people are showing by coming back to Lake Worth. The staff is committed to customer service and efficient operations, and instead they are in many cases our best ambassadors. There were 2,753 commercial and residential permits issued in 2015, which includes 703 commercial permits. Lake Worth will keep moving forward, and we will continue working to improve our customer service. And as another significant step in that direction, I am planning a series of workshops and public outreach programs to tackle some of the difficult issues I hear from about you. That includes a thorough discussion on the historic district process and rules, as well as how to better process basic permits such as fences, doors, and windows, so these necessary investments in our homes can be made efficiently and in a timely manner. I know a lot of you have had issues with that. And of course, we know that our staff has to enforce the codes and work with the process, but they also have to want to help you make improvements and help people achieve results in the most efficient and legal manner as possible. So we know that's important. Another reason I'm excited about 2016 is we're going to have a community-wide discussion on how to address our crumbling roadways. Yeah, I'm talking about the awful potholes. I'm smiling as I say potholes. While the Lake Worth 2020 bond issue was a plan, it wasn't necessarily the right plan because it didn't have the support of at least half of the voters in the city. I want to see a city united behind a plan that is widely supported and a source of pride. I'll be leading us through this process to engage a family dialogue and working together. We're going to fix our potholes, we're going to pave our streets, we're going to fix our drainage, and we are going to repair our sidewalks. Another important difference in 2016 will be a more detailed discussion on our capital program, which is a pretty good starting point for that. While we struggle with resources and do not have money for a complete overhaul of our roadways, we have been doing what we can with what we have, like you all have to do. It is important to understand that there are no large grants and pots of money at the county, state, and federal government to redo all of our neighborhood streets. That continues to be the responsibility of the city. However, because we have a lot of poverty, we do receive Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG funds. Now this is federal money passed to the city through the county. We generally receive about $250,000 a year to use for capital projects to help the community in the hardest hit areas. When I arrived in 2011, the city had not been using the money and had a backlog of over $700,000. Sitting on grant money was a major problem, and the county at the time was threatening to take the funds back from us. I immediately worked with the commission and the staff to invest this money into our road system, and as a result, 10th Avenue South was one of the first projects, followed by greenways on 8th Avenue South, 9th Avenue South, paving on 7th Avenue South, and our greenways are providing convenient and safe corridors that are adding value and improved quality of life in neighborhoods that need it most. Another important CDBG project is being coordinated with an existing water utility line project, and that's how we're trying to do it. Put the projects together so we can get more things happening at the same time. And that's happening on Tropical Lane and Barton Avenue as part of improving water service to the Barton Elementary School and neighborhood. The roadway reconstruction will now be completely redone as part of that water line replacement. We are forced to work within our means, but frankly, our roads are in such bad shape from years of ignoring the problem, we just cannot keep patching patches. As a community, we have to figure out how to pay for fixing our streets and improving the safety and quality of life for all of us. In the past, blight was not only allowed, it was accepted as a normal neighborhood condition. Code enforcement was almost non-existent, and many of the homes became owned by absentee landlords who allowed overcrowding and run-down conditions. Not anymore on my watch. We've been working really hard to put regulations in place to assist in code compliance. A complete overhaul of code took place 2 years ago, still in the works, but starting to have an effect. Starting with serious blight, the collapse of the housing market, over 2,000 properties in foreclosure, abandoned or vacant, made it so challenging for our code division. But together, the city commissioners have adopted over 50 new code ordinances to update the laws and clear up all the inconsistencies. Code has also been coordinating with the sheriff's office to identify problems in chronic nuisance properties. And last year, our code compliance division worked with our residents to make sure that 1,005 cases were resolved, and they're still working with our residents to close an additional 357 cases. The city completed 51 lot clearings, 43 board ups, and 6 demolitions of buildings, bringing the total of demolitions last year to 10. Code is also working to to address illegal rental properties and ways to rein in sober homes. As far as the sober homes issue, I am optimistic that this commission will continue our efforts to seek relief from the federal government rules governing sober homes. Also, I'm hopeful there will be some additional help from the state in the form of certification for operators. We continue to lobby our congressional leaders and work through the League of Cities to encourage changes to how the American with Disabilities Act addresses those in treatment facilities and sober homes. We're currently considering a suite of local ordinance changes being brought forward by the same attorney who wrote much of Del Rey's ordinances regarding them. Your city leadership understands the problem and is engaged in doing all it legally can to stem the impacts, while targeting specifically the unscrupulous operators who prey on addicts who suffer greatly from being a victim for profit. In addition, we here in Lake Worth have an issue that many cities around the world are dealing with it, and that is the issue of homelessness. It's not lost on all of us that we live in a beautiful area near the beach and under the sun, an area much more desirable than the cold north when the temperatures drop. Homelessness is not a singular issue. There are people who are homeless because of a downturn in our economy. People who have worked, maybe at lower paying jobs, finding themselves out of work, or overwhelmed by bills or illnesses that they find themselves unable to pay their monthly bills. There are also homeless individuals who are dealing with everything from alcoholism, Alzheimer's and dementia to PTSD. There are also individuals who are homeless by choice. In addition, there are addicts that litter our streets and parks with drug paraphernalia. As a city with a heart for all people, we must manage our challenges with compassion while still enforcing rules that protect our tax-paying citizens and children. The City of Lake Worth, together with other local cities in Palm Beach County, have programs designed to help the homeless, and our first order of business was to provide safe and free transportation for them by PBSO to programs and facilities that help get them back on their feet. I've been working closely with County Commissioner Shelley Vanna and on future homeless project aimed at putting a roof over the homeless heads for good. And in our city alone, we recently were the host for Project Homeless Connect. We have a new Goodwill and Lord's Place shelters in place, and we will be host to a summit that should be happening here in the very near future. We are all concerned about the problem of homelessness. 2016 is also a year we move forward with an effort to create some new things in our roadways, like a new and improved Dixie Highway corridor. This roadway, historically the region's first highway, was home to commerce and profitable businesses that fed the local economy back in the old days. When I-95 was built,